What's poppin', everybody? So today for this video, I'm going to be talking about some rap albums that really grew on me after the first couple listens, or sometimes more, you know, but that is all I have to introduce, so let's jump into it. With Saiyr, it wasn't an album that I just disliked, but it took me some time to get used to Jane's voice, I'm not gonna lie. There was just something about it that made it seem way too clean to be a rapper's voice. I don't know if that's the best way to describe it, but you kind of know what I mean when I say that, you know? But I would say after about the second or third listen, I got used to it, and because of that, his rapping and singing got a lot more enjoyable. You could honestly argue that his singing was better than his rapping on the album, but don't get it twisted, he was definitely flowing. And I also want to give a shout out to Blue while I'm talking about Saiyr, because I haven't talked about it in a video, but I gotta say, that's probably one of the most creative, you know, first 4 songs of an album that I've ever heard on a rap album. I gotta give Jaden props for that. I bet he put, well, the whole album, he probably spent months, maybe even a couple years just thinking about the sonics of the album, making it sound as good as possible. There is on Blue and a lot of other songs, there are a lot of beat switches and they all sounded dope, you know, like even Travis Scott would be jealous of some of the beat switches that were on this album. So overall, it's, you know, a really good album in my opinion. It's one of my favorites of 2017, but it just took me some time to get used to Jane's voice. So this one's on here for obvious reasons. The weird mixing and song structures just kind of made it a hard listen at first. Well, it's not a hard listen because I did enjoy the album the first time through, although it did grow on me a lot, but it's just, there's a lot of stuff on there that you kind of have to give a lot more listens to fully appreciate. It's just not typical rap music that you usually hear. Blank Face LP wasn't an album that I disliked when I first heard it. It was kind of underwhelming to me at first, and I'm not really sure why. I honestly think it's just because my music taste is a lot different than it was the first couple of times I heard it, or the first couple of times I heard this album. There's probably some psychological answer behind why music opinions can just change drastically, but you know, I'm not a psychologist, so I don't know. But after I would say probably like 6 or 7 listens, it became my favorite project from Q. So I'm gonna be honest, I was one of those people that was sleeping on this album just because it wasn't as good as Rodeo. But after some time I realized that although it's not on the same level as Rodeo, that doesn't mean that the album is not good. Like, it's still a really great album. Rodeo was damn near a masterpiece, so it'd be hard for anybody to top it, you know, even Travis Scott. So I quickly just looked past, you know, the whole politics of the 2 projects and whatever predispositions I put on them, and I just focused on the music. And after doing that, I actually really started enjoying this album, and I was listening to it like almost every day all the way through, you know. Some of my favorite Travis Scott songs ever come from this album. Specifically Sweet Sweet, Guidance, and Goosebumps, which I think are all top 10 Travis Scott songs all time. On my first couple listens of Question Mark, there was this weird divide for me on the album just due to how diverse of an album it was. I was really only a fan of the more hip-hop sounding songs and not really of the metal and rock inspired songs. I just really wasn't a fan of how negative they were with the screaming and subject matter. I'm not saying that I was condemning X for talking about his pain and depression, because, you know, I love when artists use music therapeutically, but at the time that type of music just wasn't for me. But after a handful of listens, I would say my appreciation of the whole album grew immensely. I actually found myself really enjoying the screaming and rock inspired songs, and you know, now I listen to Scarlord on a day-to-day basis, so you know, sometimes music opinions just do a 180 on you. I didn't like Testing initially just because I felt like it was a really rough and all over the place kind of project, which was surprising coming from A$AP Rocky just because he always had a unique sound, but it was always very calculated. But it's that same rough around the edge experimental hip hop that the album was named after that made me see the beauty in this album. And I know there's a lot of people that don't like the album, but I like how different it is. I now think the roughness and experimentation on the album give it a lot of character that most albums, let alone rap, don't have. I love when artists play with their sound as long as they deliver, and after a handful of listens, I think Rocky delivered. Forever is a Mighty Long Time is just another one of those albums where I don't know why, but I just slept on it the first time I was hearing it. It probably had something to do with the length just because it's 22 songs long, but after a couple listens, I was actually really impressed that K.R.I.T put out a 22 song long album that didn't have really any fillers. Like every song felt like it was put there for a reason and added a crucial part to the overall project. So I give big K.R.I.T props, and the album grew on me, and it's now it's definitely my top 3 rap albums of 2017. And I think Scorpion is still one of Drake's weakest albums just because of the large amount of filler songs, but there are actually a lot of gems on this album. The filler songs just get worse the more you listen to them, but the good songs just get better to me, in my opinion. Did I just say to me, in my opinion? But In My Feelings is ruined forever for me. Like, I'll never forget how the internet ruined that song in a matter of days. Like, it was actually a good song for the first 2 days I was listening to it, and then it just got ruined and overplayed. I didn't dislike Redemption at first, I just didn't think it hit as hard or resonate as much as 90059. I honestly thought it was a bit of a digression for J-Rock, but not a bad album. I do think Redemption is missing the whole grimy sound that 90059 had, but I don't think that hinders the album anymore. I think the beats are equally good on Redemption, and J-Rock is still rapping his ass off. But I do think the lyrics are a little bit less relatable than they were on 90059, but that's just probably due to J-Rock's recent success. Veteran's another album on this list that's on here for obvious reasons. JPEGMAFIA is an extremely experimental artist, and that's what you get on this project. It simply just takes time to get used to the unique sounds you'll hear on this album. Originally, I didn't like this album as a whole, besides a few tracks, just because there's so many corny and straight up bad lyrics, but there are some verses that actually do say something. Not something, there's the verses that say a lot, I should say. But overall, I think it's probably Kanye's weakest project in terms of lyrics. But once I looked past that and just focused on the production and sonics of this album, I fell in love with it. I genuinely think it's the most well-produced rap album ever. Like, it's a masterpiece when it comes to beats, but it's Kanye, so it's not that surprising. But it honestly took me a couple years to come to this conclusion, but it's now my 3rd favorite project from Kanye behind Graduation and College Dropout. Alright y'all, that is all I got for this video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, hit that like button and subscribe if you're new. Make sure to follow me on my Instagram and Twitter down in the description. And as always, it's been Saiyr the Player, and I'm gone.